The wedding hall went silent the moment she lifted her own veil. Kong Taemin's hands were shaking, and Kong Taemin's hands never shook. Not when rival gangs put a gun to his father's head. Not when he buried 3 of his own men in 1 week. But standing at that altar, staring at the woman nobody expected, his whole body forgot how to stay still. "It's not supposed to be you," he whispered. She didn't answer right away. She just looked at him the way someone looks at a person they used to know a long time ago, back when things were simpler, back when neither of them had blood on their hands yet. Her name was Zara Adeyemi. And 15 years ago, everyone in that room had watched her casket lowered into the ground. Somewhere behind him, 3 guards reached for their weapons out of pure instinct. Then they saw her face. And they froze, because you don't point a gun at a ghost. In the back row, an old woman rose slowly to her feet, one hand pressed against her mouth like she was trying to hold something in. Grandma Yun had buried a lot of people in her life. She knew what dead looked like. And she knew, without a single doubt, that this girl was not supposed to be breathing. "That's impossible," she said, so quiet only the people near her could hear it. She burned in that fire. Taemin's eyes dropped to the side of Zara's neck, to the small scar hiding just behind her ear. Only 2 people alive were ever supposed to know that scar existed. He was one of them. Zara reached up and touched it herself, like she knew exactly what he was looking at. "You buried an empty casket, Taemin," she said, calm in a way that unsettled him more than screaming ever could. "Did you ever ask yourself why?" Every guard in that room turned to him, waiting for an order. Waiting to know if she was a threat or a miracle. He didn't give them one. He just said the only word that made any sense to him in that moment. "Mother." If you're watching this right now, drop your city in the comments, because where you're from, this kind of story might sound impossible. But stay close. What happened before that wedding and everything that came after it is the part nobody in that family ever wanted the world to know. 15 years before that wedding, Zara was just a girl who liked to sneak into the Kang family kitchen and steal mangoes when the cook wasn't looking. Her mother, Folake, worked as the head housekeeper on the estate, a tall, graceful woman who moved through those hallways like she belonged somewhere much bigger than a servant's quarters. Young Taemin used to catch Zara in the kitchen almost every evening, sitting on the counter with mango juice running down her wrist, laughing at something only she found funny. "You're going to get me in trouble," he told her once, arms crossed, trying so hard to sound like the future head of the family and not like an 11-year-old boy who secretly looked forward to seeing her every day. "You're not going to tell anyone," Zara said, grinning, holding out a slice of mango toward him. "You like me too much." He took the mango. He never told anyone. That friendship grew quietly, the way things grow when nobody's watching closely enough to stop them. Stolen conversations behind the garden wall. Notes passed through the housekeeping staff. A promise, whispered one evening when they were both 15, that no matter what their families became, they would never let it change what they had. Neither of them knew that promise would be tested within the year. The night of the fire started like any other night. Zara was in her mother's small room near the east wing, half asleep, when Folake shook her awake with a look on her face that Zara had never seen before. Fear. Real fear. "We have to go," Folake said, already pulling Zara toward the window. "Now." "Mama, what's happening?" "Don't ask me questions. Just run." Outside, men were shouting. Somewhere in the compound, gunfire cracked through the night air, followed by screaming that Zara would hear in her dreams for years afterward. The rival Osebek family had come for blood, and the eastern wing was already burning by the time Folake pushed her daughter through the window and told her to run toward the trees and not look back. Zara looked back anyway. She saw her mother turn around and walk straight into the smoke instead of following her. By morning, the fire had eaten half the estate, and 2 bodies were pulled from the wreckage of the east wing. The Kang family buried them within the week, in caskets sealed shut before a single person outside the immediate family was allowed to view the remains. Everyone accepted it. Everyone except one boy who kept a mango slice wrapped in a napkin in his pocket for almost a month afterward, refusing to believe the girl who used to laugh at him for no reason was really gone. Nobody told him the truth. Not his father. Not Grandma Yun. Not the guards who whispered among themselves whenever his back was turned. He grew up anyway. He became exactly what his family needed him to become: cold when he had to be, sharp when it counted, untouchable in every room he walked into. Women wanted him for reasons that had nothing to do with who he actually was. His money, his name, the protection that came with being tied to the most powerful family in the region. He let them want him. He never let any of them close. 15 years later, on the morning of his wedding to a woman he barely knew, Taemin stood in front of a mirror straightening a jacket he didn't want to wear, thinking about a mango slice that had turned to dust in his pocket a long time ago. He had no idea that 3 streets away, a car was pulling up outside the venue, and the woman stepping out of it was wearing a veil that wasn't hers. Tell me honestly, if you were in that wedding hall and the girl everyone thought was dead walked back through those doors, would you believe your eyes, or would you think it was some kind of trick? Type your answer below, because what happens next is going to make you question everything you think you already know. Part 2 continues right after this, so make sure you're subscribed and your notifications are on, because you do not want to miss what Zara says next and why Grandma Yun looks like she's seen this exact moment happen once before. The morning of the wedding, Taemin had no idea Marcus had been sitting on a secret for almost a week. Marcus Obi had worked for the Kang family since before Taemin could properly tie his own shoes. He'd buried men without blinking, cleaned up messes that would end most people's lives, and never once questioned an order. Until a folder marked destroyed landed on his desk 7 days earlier, and instead of burning it like he was told, he opened it. He almost wished he hadn't. He found Taemin in his office the night before the wedding, staring out the window at nothing in particular, a glass of untouched whiskey sitting by his hand. "Boss," Marcus said quietly, closing the door behind him. "I need to show you something." Taemin didn't turn around. "If it's about tomorrow, I don't want to hear it." "It's not about tomorrow." Marcus set the folder on the desk. His hands weren't steady, and that alone made Taemin finally look at him. Marcus's hands were never unsteady. "It's about the fire." Something in Taemin's chest went cold. "What about it?" "I think I found her." Taemin turned around fully now, and for a moment neither of them said anything. The whiskey sat forgotten. The wedding, hours away, suddenly felt very far from either of their minds. "Found who?" Taemin said, though he already knew. He just needed to hear someone else say her name out loud, because he hadn't let himself say it in years. Marcus opened his mouth to answer, and that was the exact moment Taemin's phone rang, his father's name lighting up the screen, pulling him away before Marcus could finish. Taemin held up a hand, telling him to wait, and stepped into the hallway to take the call. When he came back, Marcus had already closed the folder. "Tomorrow," Marcus said, sliding it into his jacket. "You need your head clear for tomorrow. We'll talk after." Taemin wanted to argue. He wanted to grab the folder and rip it open right there. But something about the look on Marcus's face told him this wasn't a conversation for the night before his wedding. So he let it go, and he spent his last hours as an unmarried man pacing his room, thinking about a name he hadn't said out loud since he was 16. He had no way of knowing she would say it for him the next day, standing right in front of him in a veil that wasn't hers. Back in the present, in that silent wedding hall, Zara watched the word leave his mouth and land somewhere in her chest she wasn't prepared for. Mother. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't even really a question. It was the sound of a boy she used to know, still living somewhere inside the man standing in front of her, reaching for an answer he'd waited 15 years to get. "Not here," she said softly, glancing at the guards, at Grandma Yun still standing frozen near the back, at So-Yun Park, the bride who was supposed to be wearing that veil, now staring at Zara like she wanted to set the whole building on fire herself. "Please, Taemin. Not like this." His jaw tightened. 15 years of discipline told him to stay composed, to think 3 steps ahead the way his father raised him to. But his feet were already moving toward her before his mind caught up, and when he reached her, he did something none of his guards had ever seen him do in public. He took her hand. "Everyone out," he said, not raising his voice, not needing to. "Now." The hall emptied slowly, guests whispering behind raised hands, So-yeon storming out with her mother trailing behind her, hissing apologies to families who mattered more than they should have. Grandma Yun was the last to leave, and before she did, she stopped beside Zara and looked at her for a long moment. "You have her eyes," the old woman said. "I always wondered if I'd see them again." Then she walked out, leaving Taemin and Zara alone in a hall full of white flowers that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else's wedding entirely. 15 years, Taemin said, once the door clicked shut. His voice cracked on the second word, and he hated that it did, hated that after everything he'd built himself into, one girl in a veil could still undo him in under a minute. 15 years, Zara. I kept a piece of mango in my pocket until it rotted because I couldn't believe you were gone. Her eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. I know. You know? That's it? You know? I couldn't come back, she said, and her voice shook now too, all that careful calm from earlier finally cracking open. Do you understand what would have happened if I had? My mother didn't run into that fire to save my life just so I could walk back into this house and undo everything she did. Taemin stared at her. Your mother is alive. It wasn't a question. Something in the way Zara's face changed told him the answer before she said a single word. Yes, she whispered. She's alive. And Taemin, the people who tried to kill us 15 years ago weren't the Osebek family. He felt the floor tilt slightly beneath him. Then who? Zara opened her mouth to answer, and that was when the door behind them burst open, one of the guards rushing in, breathless, his face pale in a way that made both of them go still. Sir, he said, looking straight at Taemin, your father wants to see you. Right now. He says it's about the girl. If you've ever had a secret from your past show up right when you thought your life was finally settled, tell me in the comments, because Zara is about to learn just how far the Kang family will go to keep the truth buried, and it's more dangerous than she ever imagined. We're only halfway through this story, so make sure you like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, because part 3 is where everything changes. Say continue when you're ready for the final part. Taemin found his father in the study, standing by the window with his back turned, the way he always stood when he wanted to seem calm and wasn't. Kang Minho didn't turn around right away. You brought a ghost into my house on your wedding day. She's not a ghost. Taemin's voice was quiet, but there was something underneath it now, something that hadn't been there 15 years ago when he was just a boy asking questions no one answered. She's real. And she says the fire wasn't the Osebek family. His father's shoulders went still. She's confused, Minho said finally, turning around. Grief does strange things to memory. She has the scar, father. Behind her ear. The one only you, me, and Folake ever knew about. Taemin took a step closer. How would a confused, grieving stranger know that? For the first time in Taemin's whole life, he watched his father struggle to find words. Minho's mouth opened, closed, opened again, and in that silence, Taemin understood something was about to break that could never be put back together. Sit down, Minho said quietly. Please. I don't want to sit down. I want the truth. His father looked at him for a long moment, older suddenly than Taemin had ever seen him look, and when he spoke, his voice had lost all its usual iron. Folake was never just staff in this house, he said. She was someone I loved once, before your mother, before any of this. And Zara isn't just the housekeeper's daughter. The room went very quiet. She's your sister, Taemin. The words hit him like something physical, like a door slamming somewhere deep in his chest. He thought of every stolen mango, every whispered promise behind the garden wall, every year he'd carried a rotted piece of fruit in his pocket because he couldn't let go of a girl he thought he'd loved. And all of it rearranged itself in his mind into something entirely different. You ordered the fire, Taemin said slowly, the pieces falling into place with sickening clarity. Not to protect this family from rivals. To erase a daughter you never wanted anyone to know about. His father didn't deny it. He didn't have to. His silence said everything Taemin needed to hear. Outside the study, Zara stood frozen in the hallway, her hand pressed against the wall, having heard every single word through the door left slightly open. 15 years of running, 15 years of her mother refusing to explain why they could never go back, and now she finally understood. It wasn't rivals who tried to kill them. It was her own father, trying to erase a mistake he never wanted the world to see. She didn't cry. She was done crying over people who never once cried for her. That evening, Marcus found her sitting alone on the estate's back steps, the same steps she used to sit on as a child, waiting for a boy who wasn't her enemy but her brother, to sneak her something sweet from the kitchen. "I let you go," Marcus said, sitting down beside her. 15 years ago. I was supposed to make sure neither you nor your mother survived that night. I let you run instead." Zara looked at him, surprised. "Why?" "Because some orders aren't worth the person you have to become to follow them." He looked out at the garden, quiet for a moment. "Your mother is safe. She's been safe this whole time. She's waiting for you if you want to see her." For the first time since she'd walked into that wedding hall, Zara let herself smile, small and tired and real. A few days later, the King family council convened in a room that had seen every major decision the family had ever made, and for the first time in its history, it turned against its own patriarch. Minho was stripped of his title, his power passed formally into Taemin's hands, the truth of the fire laid bare in front of everyone who mattered. So-yeon, who had every reason to hate Zara, found herself instead standing beside her, an unlikely ally born out of a mutual refusal to let powerful men keep hiding their sins behind closed doors. That night, Taemin found Zara in the garden, near the wall they used to whisper behind as children. "I don't know what we are now," he said honestly. "Brother and sister feels too small for 15 years of missing you. But it's also everything, isn't it?" "It's enough," Zara said, and she meant it. "It's more than I thought I'd ever get back." He nodded, and for the first time since the wedding, something in his chest finally loosened. Later that night, as Zara prepared to finally see her mother again after 15 long years apart, an unknown number called Taemin's phone. He stared at it for a moment before answering, and somewhere far away, a voice he almost recognized said his name. The line went dead before he could ask who it was. Some truths take 15 years to surface, and even then, they don't come without a price. What this story really shows us is that the family we're born protecting isn't always the one worth protecting, and sometimes the people we lose are only ever waiting for the truth to bring them home. What do you think that phone call means, and who do you think was on the other end? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know how you'd interpret it. If this story moved you, there's another one on this channel waiting for you right now, just as emotional, just as full of secrets. Go watch it next, and I'll see you there.